Finally. What every WNBA fan has been waiting for just happened. A head coach, not a pundit, not a fan, just stood up and said what the entire league has been too afraid to say out loud. Stephanie White has officially stepped into the fire. The Indiana Fever head coach just dropped a truth bomb so real, it's echoing across the entire WNBA. In a league full of whispers, White spoke with calm precision, and it hit harder than any viral rant. She didn't yell. She didn't point fingers. She just told the truth. And that truth was about Caitlin Clark.
Finally, what we all have been waiting for and calling for and questioning why it wasn't happening. Stephanie White has stepped up to the plate in defense of Caitlin Clark. I could not believe my ears, guys. I could not believe my ears when I heard this. Stephanie White actually being bold enough to stand on business and protect Caitlin Clark. Stephanie
White called out what's been obvious for months. Caitlin Clark's name is being dragged into every debate, every contract fight, every storyline, even when Caitlin herself stays silent. And here's the kicker. White didn't just defend her player. She exposed a system. When she said, she's a pawn in a lot of other people's games, that wasn't just sympathy. That was a warning shot at the entire WNBA machine. Because when a league starts using its brightest star as a shield, it's not progress.
And it is Stephanie White talking about Caitlin Clark being brought up in a lot of these conversations in CBA by other people and not her speaking herself. And I think this is a really interesting one. And it's clear from this answer, I've already listened to this, it's very clear from this answer that Stephanie White clearly and Caitlin Clark, there's clearly a level of person, like they clearly really like each other as people.
So what exactly did Stephanie White say? And why is this interview shaking the foundation of the WNBA right now? Let's get into it. To understand why Stephanie White's words hit like a thunderclap, you have to rewind to a season where Caitlin Clark's name became the headline for everything except basketball. Every argument, every feud, every policy debate, somehow it always circled back to Caitlin. Player salaries? What about Caitlin Clark's money? TV ratings? Well, that's just because of Caitlin. Refereeing controversies? She gets all the calls. It didn't matter what the topic was. Caitlin's name got dragged into it. And through it all, the rookie stayed quiet.
Stepping up to the plate, saying what it is. These people are using Caitlin Clark. They're disrespecting, and we can't allow it.
And then Caitlin Clark kind of getting brought into that. Caitlin Clark responding to it. What has been your overall assessment of that dialogue and as it relates to your star player?
Yeah, I mean, I hate it all for Caitlin. I feel like, she's a 23-year-old kid who loves to play this game.
She never fired back, never clapped back, never made it personal. She just kept hooping. But for Stephanie White, watching that unfold from the sidelines wasn't just frustrating, it was personal. Because White isn't some outsider. She's OG WNBA. She was there during the league's first collective bargaining battles, when players were fighting for basic health care and year-round paychecks. She's seen how hard it is for women's basketball to gain real respect. So when she hears people weaponizing Caitlin's name, using her fame as a bargaining chip in labor talks,
who is a pawn in a lot of other people's games and a lot of other people's narratives, and I hate that for her. We're coming into a time in the WNBA where we're kind of part of the growing pains of becoming quote unquote mainstream professional sport is some of this stuff. I do think that we are at a pivotal moment in terms of the league's history. And look, I was a part of the very first collective bargaining agreement of the WNBA, where we wanted insurance all year long, to now where it is growing and players do deserve more. And leadership needs to reflect.
Stephanie White didn't raise her voice, but make no mistake, she set the room on fire. When she said Caitlin Clark is a pawn in other people's games, that was no random soundbite. That was a surgical strike, because White knows exactly who those other people are. She was talking about everyone, from the players using Caitlin's fame to push CBA agendas, to the league office milking her image for sponsorships, to the media twisting her name into every storyline for clicks. And the craziest part? Caitlin herself hasn't said a single controversial word all season.
Where we are as a league, and also understand where we are as a league and where players' perspectives are coming from. And we have coaches on the sidelines, and Becky Hammond and myself, and of course Noah Quinn, who was in Seattle, who played in this league.
No drama, no excuses, just buckets. Yet somehow, every WNBA debate turns into a Caitlin Clark referendum. It's like she's no longer a player, she's a metaphor, a scapegoat, and a marketing campaign rolled into one. White's comments shattered that illusion. She said what no one in leadership has the guts to admit. Caitlin Clark is carrying the burden of an entire league's insecurities. Every time the WNBA struggles, they point to her. Every time ratings spike, they claim her. And every time controversy hits, they hide behind her name. That's not fair, and Stephanie White made that clear. She's watched Caitlin take body shots on the court and verbal shots off it, and never once bite back. And that's the part that broke her, because White knows what it feels like to love this game only to see it use you for someone else's agenda. Her message wasn't anti-player, anti-league, or anti-media. It was anti-BS. And for a league that loves its slogans about empowerment, that's a truth they didn't want to hear. When Stephanie White spoke up, it didn't just ruffle feathers. It ripped the mask off an entire system that's been pretending everything's fine. Because while White's words were measured, the message was explosive. Leadership has lost control. Let's call it what it is. The WNBA's at war with itself. A few weeks before White's interview, Napheesa Collier publicly torched Commissioner Kathy Engelbert for what she called tone-deaf leadership. Sophie Cunningham followed by calling Engelbert the most delusional leader the league has ever seen. Lexi Hull backed her up. Becky Hammon threw shade over officiating. And now Stephanie White, the one coach everyone respects for staying level-headed, has joined the chorus. That's not a coincidence. That's an uprising. Stephanie White just gave it a name. This isn't about one player anymore. It's about power. Who has it? Who deserves it? And who's been faking it? Stephanie White wasn't just defending Caitlin Clark. She was dissecting a pattern. She's watched this league for decades, from its birth to its biggest boom, and she's seen this same cycle repeat over and over again. A star rises, the league profits, and then somehow, the same system turns that star into a punching bag. That's what she means by pawn. It's not a metaphor, it's a diagnosis. The WNBA uses Caitlin Clark. The players use her name in negotiations. The media uses her for engagement. And the leadership uses her success as a shield against its own failures. Meanwhile, Caitlin herself? She just plays. No excuses, no self-defense, no drama. But every time she steps on the floor, she carries the weight of conversations she didn't start, and criticism she didn't earn. White's seen that before. She lived through the early years when the league barely survived, when players had to work overseas just to make ends meet. She's been the player, the assistant, the coach, and now she's the voice saying what everyone inside the machine already knows but won't say out loud. The WNBA is growing in spite of its leadership, not because of it. When White said, "We're going through growing pains," it wasn't sugarcoating, it was warning. Because growth without direction isn't progress, it's chaos. And right now, the league's chaos has a face: Caitlin Clark. She's 23, trying to navigate fame, physical play, and media frenzy, all while being the symbol of everything wrong and right with women's basketball. White's tone wasn't angry, it was protective, almost maternal, because she knows how this ends if things don't change. The league will keep squeezing until the very player keeping it relevant burns out. That's not leadership, that's cannibalism. The shockwaves from Stephanie White's interview didn't just ripple, they reverberated. Across locker rooms, press rooms, and even boardrooms, you could feel it. Someone finally said out loud what everyone else had been whispering, and now nobody can unhear it. Because White's comments aren't just about Caitlin Clark, they're about the state of the WNBA itself. About a league that's the contradiction Stephanie White just put under a microscope. She reminded everyone that the league's future doesn't rest in press conferences or slogans. It rests in trust. Trust between leadership and players. Trust between players and fans. Because if fans start believing the league exploits its stars instead of empowering them, that trust evaporates, and no marketing campaign can fix that. White's words lit a fuse, not because they were controversial, but because they were true. And in this era of spin, nothing scares a league more than the truth. The question now isn't whether Caitlin Clark can handle the pressure. She's proven that already. The question is whether the WNBA can handle her success. Stephanie White didn't go viral because she shouted. She went viral because she told the truth, calmly, clearly, and without fear. And that's what makes her stand out in a league drowning in noise. She wasn't defending just Caitlin Clark. She was defending what the WNBA is supposed to stand for: growth, respect, unity. Instead, what we've seen lately feels like ego wars and leadership spin. The people running this league keep preaching sisterhood, but when one player's success outshines the system, they turn on her instead of learning from her. That's what Stephanie White called out: the fear of change disguised as protecting the culture. And here's the truth that nobody in the front office wants to admit. Caitlin Clark isn't the problem. She's the proof. Proof that women's basketball can pull millions of eyes, fill arenas, and drive revenue, if the league actually knows what to do with that momentum. White just gave the WNBA a roadmap. Protect your stars, respect your players, and lead with honesty, not politics. Because when history looks back on this era, it won't remember the meetings or the memos. It'll remember who had the guts to speak up when it mattered most. And that's why Stephanie White's words will echo far beyond this season. So, what do you think? Is the WNBA ready to face its own reflection? Or will it keep using Caitlin Clark as the shield for its failures? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe, because this story is far from over.